Hi everyone, I welcome you again to our YouTube channel. My name is Professor Kevin. So on today's video, we'll be talking about the Euclidean but focusing on the midpoint theorem. Okay, so so today we'll be talking about the midpoint theorem. Okay, talking about the midpoint theorem. The midpoint, it only applies on triangles. Okay, it only applies in a triangle, and the theorem states like this. If a line, or let me start by drawing a triangle so that whatever we'll be saying it can make more perfect sense. Okay, let me call it A, B, and C. Okay, so the theorem states like this: if a line, if a line is joining, if a line is joining the midpoint, if a line is joining the midpoint of two sides of a triangle. If a line is joining the midpoint of two sides of a triangle, that line, it will be parallel, it will be parallel to the third side. Ne? It will be parallel to third side of a triangle, and and it will be equal to, and it will be equal to, it will be equal to half of the third side of that triangle. Okay, of a triangle. So this theorem says if a line is joining the midpoint of two sides of a triangle. Okay, let's start by the midpoint. Let's say we're having a midpoint Q, and then here we are having a midpoint P. Okay, so Q is the midpoint of AC and P is the midpoint of AB. Then it means if Q is the midpoint of AC, obviously AQ will be equal to QC, all right, and AP will be equal to PB. That's it. So they say if a line is joining the midpoint of two sides of a triangle, okay, don't forget our midpoint is P and Q. It's P and Q. So if you can have a line that will be joining P and Q, okay, this line, they say that line, it will be parallel to the third side of a triangle. What is the third side of our triangle here? They're talking about the BC. So it means PQ will be parallel to BC. PQ will be parallel to BC. Okay? And it will be equal to half of the third side of that triangle. So it means PQ will be equal to half of our third side, which is BC here. So PQ is equal to half of BC. The reason for these two things is what? Converse. Not converse, sorry. The reason for these two things is midpoint theorem. It's midpoint theorem. That is the reason for these two things. PQ is parallel to BC, the reason will be midpoint theorem. PQ is half of BC, the reason will be a midpoint theorem, because we're talking about the midpoint theorem now. Okay, so it means if here it's 10 centimeter, for example, it means PQ is going to be 5 centimeter because PQ is a half of BC. Okay, PQ is the half of BC, so that's what it means. So this is all about a midpoint theorem. Okay, so we also have to talk about the converse of a midpoint theorem. Okay? So don't forget here, we were given that, or let me write the given information so that you can understand. A midpoint theorem is when we are given what? It's when we are given that AQ is equal to QC, and we were given that AP is equal to PB. Okay, then we can apply the midpoint theorem. If you're having this information, it qualifies us, or it allows us to apply the midpoint theorem. Okay, if a line is joining the midpoint of two sides of a triangle, then it will be parallel to the third side of a triangle, and it will be equal to half of that third side. Okay, so now let me go to the converse. Let me now go to the converse. You can simply pause the video and copy everything that we are writing here. Make sure that wherever you are having a pen and a book to write everything here, because it's not everything that I'm going to say or everything that I'm going to write. So please, some of the things I'll just say them without writing it, and some of the things I'll just write it. So you need to also write it down so that you can practice with it. So now we're going to midpoint converse. Okay. Or let me call it converse midpoint theorem. Or that's fine. So let me draw a triangle. It will be A, B, and C. So you must understand the converse of a midpoint theorem. So this converse says that if a line passes through the midpoint, if a line passes through the midpoint of one side, if the line passes through the midpoint of one side of a triangle and parallel to another side, that line, it will bisect the third the third side of our triangle. So if a line, it passes through the midpoint of one side of a triangle, so it means in this case we are only given one midpoint, okay, midpoint of one side only. So let's say we're having a midpoint of AC, okay. Yeah, so it means AQ is equal to QC. We are given the midpoint of one side. In this case, we are not given the midpoint of two sides, but only one side. And they say that line, if a line passes through the midpoint of, if the line passes through the midpoint of one side of a triangle and parallel to another side, so it means this line is parallel to what? BC. Okay, this is a given information. That line, it will bisect the third side of a triangle. It means it will bisect what? AB. So let me call this P. Okay, so it means if PQ bisect AB, it automatically means that AP is going to be equal to PB. Okay, the reason will be converse midpoint theorem. Converse midpoint theorem. Okay, so it's very much important. So here, what we were given is that we were given that AQ is equal to QC and PQ is parallel to BC. If you can check this one, on the first one where we were talking about the midpoint theorem, we were not given the parallel lines, okay, but here we are given the parallel lines. So we must differentiate between the midpoint theorem and the midpoint converse, okay. So the reason for this one will be converse midpoint theorems. It says that if a line passes through the midpoint of one side of a triangle and parallel to another side, it will bisect the third side of a triangle. So it means it will bisect what? AB. It will bisect that side of AB. Okay, then the reason will be midpoint theorem, and that one doesn't change, that PQ is equals to half of BC still. Then the reason for this one is what? Midpoint theorem. Okay, so you must differentiate this reason. The reason for this one doesn't change, is still midpoint theorem. Okay, so you must start by proving that here we are having a midpoint theorem. Okay, because I've shown you we apply midpoint theorem when we are given one. So it means now if AP is equals to PB, now we can apply the midpoint theorem and say PQ is equals to half of BC. But we cannot say PQ is equals to half of BC if we are not given the enough information about the midpoint theorem. If we're given information like this one here, where we're given PQ is parallel to BC and AQ is equal to QC. Here, if you can check, the information was not enough for us to apply the midpoint theorem. So we're going to first prove it by using the converse. Converse is the reverse of midpoint theorem. So the first thing you're supposed to do when you're given this information is to say AP is equal to PB, converse midpoint theorem. Then now we can go ahead and apply the properties of a midpoint theorem. Okay, just like PQ is equals to half of BC. Then now let's do the exercises based on these things. So midpoint theorem It's very much simple. It's very simple. So you will see when we do an example. So here's our question. We're given that AP is equal to PB and AQ is equal to QC. So if you can check here, this information, it qualifies for us, or it allows us to apply the midpoint theorem. We are having enough information to apply the midpoint theorem. Okay, so it means now we can come and say PQ is parallel to BC. PQ is parallel to BC. The reason will be midpoint theorem. That is the reason. Okay, so yeah, PQ is parallel to BC. So it means the value of y will be equal to 65. Y will be equal to 65 degrees. The reason will be what? Corresponding angles. These are the corresponding angles, and we must provide or we must show which sides are parallel. Is PQ parallel to BC? Don't write corresponding angles only without showing which sides are parallel. These are our reasons. Okay, even if it was alternate angles or cointer angles, we must indicate which sides are parallel there. Okay, so y is equal to 65 because it's got this angle. Okay, then x, all right, in PQ, we know it's a half of what? Of BC. Then the reason for this one is what? Midpoint theorem. This is a midpoint theorem. Okay, PQ is x equals to half of BC, which is 20. So 1/2 multiplied by 20 is going to give us 10 centimeters. So it means our x is what? Is 10 centimeters and our y is 65 degrees. And then that's how we're supposed to solve this question. Okay, so let's go to the second one. So here's our second question. We are given that AD is equal to DB and DE is parallel to BC. The question says find the value of x, y, and z. Okay, z we are referring to the length of AC or side AC. Okay, then if you can analyze what we are given, this information, it's for a converse midpoint theorem. Okay, we don't have enough information so far to apply the midpoint theorem. Okay, because if you're having enough information, it's when you're having a triangle like this, then this side is equal to this side, and these two sides are also equal. So this information, it's enough for us to apply the midpoint theorem. So here it's not enough, so but it's a converse of a midpoint theorem, because the converse midpoint of a theorem, it says that if a line is passing through the midpoint of one side of a triangle and parallel to another, that line, it will bisect the third side of a triangle. So it means it will bisect what? Here our third side we are referring to AC. Okay, so it means we'll come and say AE is equal to EC. This is what? Converse midpoint theorem. Okay, that's why it's very much important to know those theorem, converse and the other one of midpoint theorem. You must know all of them and what they are saying. Okay, so it means AE now is equal to EC. Okay, we provided a reason. We don't have to come and say AE is equal to EC without the reason. So it means Z is going to be 9 plus 9, which is 18 centimeters. All right, that's how we're going to get our Z. So let's continue and find our x and y. Okay, if you can check now, we have enough information to apply the midpoint theorem. So I can say DE is half of what? Of BC. This is midpoint theorem. This is midpoint theorem. Okay, so what is the length of DE? We are given as 7 is equals to half multiplied by BC, it's y, the one we are looking for. Okay, so how are we going to get our y? We can multiply both sides with 2. Okay, or we say divide both sides with 1/2, still the same thing. So if you multiply 7 with 2, it's going to give you what? 14 is equal to, or let me write 14 centimeter, because yeah, everything was in terms of centimeter. The length is in terms of centimeter, and then if you multiply 1/2 with 2, you're going to get to 1y, so which is the same as y. So the value of y is what, 14 centimeter, and indeed a half of 14 is going to give us that 7, because we said correct, DE is a half of BC. So see, then now we are only left with the value of x. Okay, if we can have this angle C, we can be able to find our x. Okay, how are we going to get angle C? Angle C is going to be equal to angle 65 degrees. So angle C is equal to 45 degrees. The reason for this one will be corresponding angles. Okay, because DE is parallel to BC. Okay, we must also show which sides are parallel, isn't it? So then we need to find our x. Now we know C is 45. Okay, so if we can add angle A plus angle B plus angle C, it's going to give us 180, because those are sum of angles in a triangle. Okay, so it means angle A is 45 degrees plus x plus the other one is 45 degrees. It's going to give us 108. Reason is what? Sum of angles in a triangle. Always make sure you provide the reason. Then the value of x is going to be what? You're going to say 180 degrees minus a. Oh, the other one is 40, not 45. 45. A it's 40, sorry. A it's 40, not 45. Okay, so we're going to say 180 degrees minus 40 minus 45. Okay, so that's how we're going to get your value of x. And I believe you're going to get 95 degrees, if I'm not mistaken. You're going to get 95 degrees, so that will be your value of x. So that's how we're going to find everything there. So thank you guys for watching this video. Please don't forget to like and share our video with your friends or your fellow learners. So if you're having a problem, you can simply contact me or call me on this number, 066 276 4810. Okay, if you need classes for mathematics, or you need to consult, you're having a problem, you can simply send me a problem on that number. You can use WhatsApp or a call. Okay, so thank you guys again. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Sharp.